So it's plot time and I arrived very early. It was a little frosty and cold, to say the least. It was very early in the morning. I had lots to do, so I wanted to crack on as early as possible. Still struggling a little with the pathways there. That's definitely something that needs to be sorted. The first thing I do when I arrive on the plot is just check everything is as it should be. There's nothing missing. There's nothing that's got disease on it. There's no animals that shouldn't be on there. All the usual bits and pieces, like the dog ball that was on the path. I don't know where that came from. There aren't many plot holders that bring their dogs to the plot, so I'm assuming it's come over the back fence into the plot because it wasn't retrieved. So we did end up throwing it back over for the dog who lost their ball. So just showing you a little bit of the damage on the pumpkin. So I'd already removed the ones that weren't damaged at this point. And each time I come down, I like to check on the little green one because that is not getting damaged by the frost. The white ones are, but not the orange ones, which is a surprise really. So it's still going strong, so I left it. That is compost bay number 1, doing good. And number 2 is the one we're currently using. So I'm really happy with the compost bays at the moment, and I have more cardboard at home ready for when number 2 is empty and we can pop cardboard around the edge and start from scratch all over again. And hopefully it will be ready for spring, for when we are doing lots of spring planting. The runner beans are still flowering even though we keep taking off the flowers, and they are still going really strong. So when I come back from my holiday, if they are still going strong, I'm actually going to cut them from the bottom all the way across so I can finally harvest those beans for the beans. As you can see, the courgette plants and the Swiss chard is still doing extremely well, still trying to produce for me. I couldn't decide if I was going to remove them today or not. It's a day by day kind of a thing to wait and see what they're doing so I know what I'm doing. We are forecast a week of sunshine soon, so I'm going to leave them in there, and hopefully when I get back I will have some final courgettes. Some of the sunflowers there were doing fantastic and some not so much, so that also was going to be dealt with. The same issue with the dragon beans. They are still growing, they are not dying off, so I will probably cut them along the bottom next time I come along, just to get them up and out, because I am going to dismantle some of the archways this winter, just to keep them from rusting and blowing down really. The cauliflowers have still got an aphid problem. It's not as bad, but it's still a problem. So these are the beds that I will be working on today. Onions will be going in because I really need them out by June, like mid to late June, for the beans that I will be putting in there, and the tomatoes, weather dependent obviously. So my daughter's beds, they don't need any seeing to at the moment. The sunflowers are doing their thing, so that's the second cropping of sunflowers. The green manures are starting to come through now. The marigolds are still doing fantastic, and she has quite a big swede growing in there. So apart from a bit of watering, her beds are just being left for now. Don't need to do anything with them. You can see a lot more of the green manures here coming through, looking absolutely fantastic, with a few spring onions that aren't getting any bigger. I think we need a little bit of sunshine for that. This bed looks like one of the cats or foxes has been in there because it's pulled up some of the sticks and all the netting, and I also did the same thing myself. The pak choi is looking good. One row of succession sowing is looking good, and the other one looks ready to pick. The grass frost killed all of the mini pumpkins, so that is on next week's job to do. Getting those beds ready for the garlic. That is the plan. More watering on all of the beds and all the fruit trees. I cannot wait to get the fruit cage put up so I can finally organise the section for all of the fruit, which will require 2 more raised beds being built for strawberry plants. And I've got some raspberry bushes at home that need to come out of the greenhouse and go into the plot ready for next year, so it can start establishing itself a little bit. It is a very cold and frosty morning down on the plot. You can probably see, if not, that is lots of frost and cold in the air. It's not raining. There is rain forecast for later, and I've got so much on over the next few days before I go away. So I thought a nice early trip to the plot to get anything done that has to be done before I go away for a week. So it's cold. This is definitely staying on. I've got nice thick joggers on today. My name is Claire and I have a plot in Wiltshire. And hello and welcome to my subscribers. If you have not yet subscribed, please click on that button if you think you might want to see some more. I've got some great things that I'm up to today. The onions are going in. Ideally, I'd like to wait to the end of next week, which is the beginning of October, but I'm not here. So they're going to go in. And not only that, is I'd really like them out in June, ready to plant all of my beans, because where my onions are, my beans are going, and my tomatoes. So I'd really like them out by June, if the weather is going to do what I hope it's going to do for next year. What else is on the plan for today? Tidying up the pumpkin patch. If you saw my previous video, the pumpkins are now out, apart from a couple of damaged ones and one very small green one, which I am going to still try and protect if possible. The courgettes might come out today as well. They have got fruit on them, but they're getting to miniature size and then nothing's happening. What else is on the plot today? I have seeds with me today. Okay, so this is what I've got with me today. So I have got some Swiss chard. So that is the Ford hook. So when I put my onions in, I'm going to be doing a couple of rows either side of my onions of the Swiss chard. I found those ones to be really good in the cold and the frost. They can really tolerate. And some Mouli Minoise radish. So again, it's something that I read that is very good, frost tolerant, and that I can pop into the ground as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to pop these in with the onions or if I'm going to pop them in my other bed. And then some chamomile. So I read that if you put the chamomile in the ground now and then you mulch that bed, it will stay dormant until the warmer weather, the soil warms up, and then I should get a really early batch of chamomile, because next year my plan is to dehydrate it, and then use it in tea. So that's what seeds I've got with me today. I'm not going to water this morning. It's far too cold to water this morning. The beans are still going to be there. I'm not going to pick the beans, but the main job of today is to pop the rhubarb into the ground and pop these seeds in, prepare the beds for the onions, get the onions in, and then mulch the onions so that the rats don't come along, and probably put some kind of frame up around the onions, because you have to leave them sticking up out the ground. So that's probably what I am going to do. So my mum will be joining me, I'm hoping, at some point, because I'm not great at getting on my hands and knees, so I need someone to plop the onions in for me while I stand up and divot and make the holes. So that is today's plan. I have 2.5 hours to get everything done. Wish me luck. I would normally keep the roots in the ground. However, because I've decided to sow seeds in between the rows of onions, I will be doing a sowing of seed, onion, a sowing of seed, and then onion on both sides, which means these roots are going to be in the way. If I really can't get them out, I will leave them in, but I'm going to give it a good try. Let's rake up, because I've popped this garlic bed in here. So the reason why I'm raking, first of all, so it exposes the weeds and it will fill the holes that I've just made. It will also bring to the surface the maybe cable ties that I've been using on this area, because obviously the sticks were in the Titan sunflowers and cable tied in, and any mulch that is on here that is too big to have where I'm planting the onions. But then I can rake it back over the top when the onions are in, to give it that extra layer of protection. Well, there seems to be a lot of mulch on this bed. No wonder the sunflowers did so well. Okay, let's keep bringing it up. So the other side of this bed has already been done. So this is what I call my large no dig bed. So this is the first one that I popped in, and I wanted a large one here. So the reason why I put a large one in here and a small one is because originally this was going to be my brassica bed. But then I realised putting a frame right in the middle was going to cast quite a lot of shade on other crops. So that's why I put in the second no dig bed, which is probably 1/3 of this size, the same length, but with the net over it and the framework over it, what it does is it casts a shade over the shadow and the plot bias, as opposed to here. So this area now gets full sunshine. My plans for the next year for this area is to have the onions in. When anything I sow in between the onions is finished, keep sowing, multi-sow, keep getting crops in this area that work well with onions, depending on the season. Obviously early spring something else will be going in as well. Keeping as much nutrition in the ground as possible, because the onions like to suck it all up, which is what I want, because I want big fat onions. And then as soon as the onions are out, I will be planting across here 2 rows of climbing beans, and then I will interplant in and around this whole area as well, probably with courgettes. And then on this side I'm going to have a huge row of 2 different varieties of tomatoes. So that is the plan for this side, and I'll have marigolds and basil all around this area as well. So that is the plan for these beds for next year. And when they come out, I might even put some potatoes in for Christmas, because potatoes have never been grown here before. However, the process of, you can't plant potatoes where potatoes have been planted before. I take that with a pinch of salt. If you are putting lots of nutrition into that ground, if you are putting bloodfish bone in and some slow release fertilizer and some good compost, whether it's what you have in your own plot or in your own garden or shop bought, if you are putting those things back into the ground, then the potatoes are absolutely fine. It's if you don't put anything back after you take anything out. But the process is the same for everything you grow. No matter what you're growing, you shouldn't just shove something else in. You need to put something back in the soil, because the better the soil, the better the produce that you have, right? So yeah, so potatoes will be going in after the beans, after the tomatoes, once I've enriched the soil again. And that'll be the first time I put them in the ground, because normally I put them into pots. But I want a nice big supply of potatoes for next year, so I don't have to grow them as often. So next year is all about the beautiful potato. So that's my plans for next year for these 2 beds. The hope is that with the climbing beans all across here, what's going to happen is it's going to create shade. And let me show you where I want the shade to be. Okay, so it's going to create shade onto the brassica bed, which means there is a really good chance I can grow cauliflowers in this bed because of the shade that's going to be created. My sun comes all down this side and then moves round towards the back of the plot. So late afternoon, this will get full sun, but it won't be as hot. So that's my process. So I'm hoping to continue to grow brassicas in this bed, and beetroot, because beetroot's done really well in this bed as well. And I've managed to grow Savoy cabbage, which has had no shade all through the summer, and it's perfect. So there are some brassicas that I can grow in the warmer months as long as I give them some kind of shade. So yeah, so the beans are going to go across here and create shade for here. I will move the beets, instead of having them in the row that they've been in all of this year, I will probably put them down on the inside of here. Probably 2 rows if I'm honest, because I like my beets. And then I will have a row of Savoy cabbages, a row of cauliflowers, because I know I can grow those in the warmer months as long as you keep them watered and as long as they've got shelter from the really, really hot sun. What else could I possibly grow in there? Some sorrel. My sorrel's done very, very well at this plot. So some sorrel can probably go in there because I use it as a substitute for spinach when I can't grow spinach. So yeah, so it's all things that can come out in time for when I put the brassicas in to overwinter again. So that is my plan. I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of planning. The current year that I've been here, I haven't done planning. I haven't done any of those things. What I have done is trial and error. I don't know what the ground is like. I don't know what's going to grow well here and what doesn't grow well here. So this year I've had a really good eye-opener to what does well and where. So, and not only that, is what areas are good and what are not for the wildlife, the rats, the foxes, the cats, sometimes people's dogs, as I've just found a dog paw in here. So yeah, so I'm going to be planning a lot. I'm hoping to be able to get my hands on Chloe's planner. I'm sure everybody knows about Chloe's planner by now, as there's a massive waiting list for it, and I'm on the waiting list unfortunately and not on the actual mailing list. So I will be using that to plan everything that I have, and I'll be drawing lots and lots of pictures of where I would like everything to go, because I think that will also help my mum as well when I'm describing things to her. I think sometimes it goes so this way, she's got a visual of how everything is going to be. That's the plan. Now I need to stop yabbering to you and actually crack on with the hard graft. So I've got my hoe and I've got the blood fishing bone. It's time to get these weeds out. So this has been going for about 8 months. We took out everything that was on top to uncover all of this beautiful compost that we've created. I like to say created, not grown. Minus a bit of weed membrane there. Okay. And then hopefully all of this will be empty by the end of the day. Lovely worms in there. Then if it's empty, that means we can start using this one again. And then compost bay number 1, which is right next to it, can then start breaking down for the spring. Oh, lovely. Some leaf mulch there as well. Okay. That is ready to go on the onion bed. Oh, look at these lovely big juicy worms there. Make sure I take some of that with me over to the onion bed. So this is the first one. Let's take out any big sticks. There's still eggshells and they're breaking down, which is fine. It's another one, number 2. That's an eggshell. Okay, number 3 in. 4. So this one should take 8. Okay. Woo. Okay, while my back's hurting, I'm going to grab the other bag of soil. Here's okay, so it's a multi-purpose compost, and I'm going to place that over the bed, mix it in with the compost from the allotment, and then I'm just going to leave it and then start on the next one, and then do all of the onion sowing after. And it's absolutely stunning. Let's have a closer look. A mix of everything. You've got some really good soil in there, along with some compost to go in there as well, and some leaf mulch. Let's take out any more bits I can see. And here are my onions. So I don't do seed for onions. I'm nowhere near the experience of that yet. But so we have these 2 and these 2. That's a lot of onions to get in. Okay. So let's show you. So that side is completely done. Now this one's had the blood fishing bone, so it just needs the compost from the compost heap and the bag of soil. And then that side is done. I'm going to do the onions now, the white onions and the red onions. Doesn't matter which way round they go. Last year my red ones were bigger than my white ones, so with that in mind, red ones are going to go this side, the brown ones are going to go that side because the sun comes from that side, so it might make the brown ones a little bit bigger because I would prefer bigger brown ones to red ones. Okay, so onions, I'm sure you all know by now which way to put an onion in, but I will show you anyway. So we have two for an example here. So you have the pointy bit and you've got the little furry bit. So the pointy bit on this one's not as obvious, so I will show you that one. And then again, the furry bit's much smaller. So it goes in that way. You drop it into the hole. Which hole can you see best? So drop it into the hole, the furry bit down, so that's where the root is. And then you gently cover around, do not cover the top. So you leave the top slightly exposed, but you still want to firm it in there to make it more difficult for the rats to pull it out. So you pop it in, firm around it, leave the root exposed. So make sure you're concentrating, you don't do it the other way around. Firm it in there. I made trenches in between the rows of onions to place the seeds. I did a thin sowing of seeds from one end all the way to the other. I made sure that the seeds were nice and thin because I didn't want any young new growth on the onions to be hindered by anything that I had put in. The onions are the priority in this bed. Anything extra I get with this bed is a bonus. I had quite a bit of seed, so it was handy just to use them in this area, and it gave me an indication as well. It will give me an indication of how good the soil actually was. So I just used a pole, made a trench, sowed the seeds, gently covered over with the compost that was already there, and then as you can see here, gave everything a really deep good water. We were expecting rain that evening, so I didn't need to drench it as such, and there was rain expected at the weekend before the week of sun. So I've given instructions over to my mum. There are new seeds in these beds. You need to water well, do not allow them to dry out. So that was my biggest focus for while I'm away, because I don't usually sow seeds and I know I'm going away. I haven't at home, but these beds needed to go in, they needed to be completed, so that's one less thing I can worry about while I'm away. Okay, so that's both the onion beds done now. There was a lot more brown onions than red because they were slightly smaller. So I planted some in with the garlic on the end, and there's about 8 left which I can take home and shove in my vegetable patch. So we've got the signs here to pop in. So we've got the brown onion, we've got the radish, the chamomile, the spinach, the Swiss chard, which is spelt wrong again, and the red onions. I did not write these plant labels. Woman! S-W-I-S-S. You wrote H again. You rubbed out the H and put a H again.
No, I rubbed out the W for H.
So you've now named it Swiss chard. Can you get me a plant label that says Swiss chard? Look, just for anyone who wants to have a laugh at my mother. Have you ever heard such a thing? Oh, let's try this one again. S-W-I-S-S.
Oh yeah, I put H on
You put S-H-I-S-H. It's not even a word. We've got chamomile. So we've got chamomile there. We have got spinach here. So that is that done. It's taken a good few hours to do that, but I'm extremely happy with how it's gone and how it looks. Okay, so the next job is to put a surround around it for now, so a net, so we won't need to walk up and down this path for a good few weeks. So we are just going to put a general net up just to stop the rats. That's my biggest concern from learning from last year's rat issues. That is what we are going to do next. So that is it, done for the day. This is the state that we left the plot in, but there's plenty of tidying to do. I clipped off the rest of the pumpkins and confined it all to the original space that it was in. So anything that had grown out of that space was popped back in, including 2 pumpkins that were still growing. Being away, my mum has asked for a nice jobs list for her for next week, so that is what we cracked on with chopping up some weeds and pumpkin mess, with digging out the last of the compost ready to start using it again, moving any bits of wood, rubbish, framework from around the plot and giving it a general good tidy. The courgettes stayed in as we are due a week of warm weather next week, so I left those ones in. We have one little pumpkin there that is rooted in that bed. I left half the sunflowers in, the other half came out. We ended up putting net over the beds on top of the soil because we didn't have enough net to go all the way around, which was disappointing. But I will pick up some this weekend and I can give my mum that job for next week, because with some cable ties she will be able to do that by herself, just to give it that extra protection. So that is a job for the weekend before I go away. Really happy with these beds. They're looking absolutely fantastic and healthy, which is your main goal. So still able to get up and down the path for now. Some of my herbs were looking really good today as well, so they actually will come out of pots ready for next year, and they will go into the ground because they required far too much water in this year. So I gave all the raised beds a really good water because there's green manures on them, and we still have some things that are flowering and some things that are growing. The potatoes received a good water. Next week they will be fed. That's another thing on the list. I noticed that our plum tree is doing really well and the one behind not so much, so I do need to look at that to see if there's anything that I can actually do to help the tree. The pathways are all really well mulched now. The chippings on there are quite thick, so hopefully when the rain does come we can walk up and down and not have to worry about getting too muddy. The fruit area is coming to an end, even though we do have a few strawberries on there and a few raspberries, but they are waiting for the fruit cage to go up, which can definitely wait a little longer. Those bags are full of chippings ready to go on any of the beds, so when they are done and ready for winter we will put the chippings on. For example, this bed, the brassica bed, is chippings will go up and down, so we've got somewhere to walk and we don't accidentally trample on any of the plants that we've put in. These will be watered the next day because we just did not have time. 4.5 hours, there was no longer any time. We didn't have time to harvest anything. The peas and beans need doing. Please like, comment, subscribe and share. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon on the plot.